Ruben Östlund is my guest. His latest Palme d'Or winning film is called Triangle of Sadness. He is here at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it's a great joy to have you. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
It is something else. I've had a number of people come up to me and say, "Have you seen it yet?" It's sort of become the talk of the festival a little bit.
But that sounds great. I mean, I think when I started to make the film, I said I want to create a wild, entertaining roller coaster for adults. So I wanted it to be wild. I wanted it to be surprising, and I wanted to create a really, really strong reason of why we should go and watch something together. I mean, that's what we are, fighting with as a filmmaker today, that you want to get people away from that little individual screen and go into a room and watch something together with other people.
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing. And I say the roller coaster analogy works because I was sort of breathless and terrified, and exhilarated throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the germ of the idea, and I don't want to give up too much away. The film centers on a doomed cruise filled with the wealthy and powerful in society, oligarchs, arms dealers, Instagram influencers. On the other side, there are people who work on the ship, whether they're in the kitchen or they're working to serve the ultra wealthy. I'll say the ship goes down and the power structure kind of flips. Being wary of spoilers, but we had a bit of a talk about it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what sparked the idea for you.
What started the idea was when I met my wife. She's a fashion photographer. So I got very interested in the fashion industry, and I got interested in beauty and beauty as a currency. I thought it was interesting that it's one of the few things that can make you climb in class society, except from money and education. So I started to do research in the fashion world, and I started to find out interesting facts, like, for an example, that the male models are earning 1/4 of what the female models are doing. Male model is they actually called male model, so they say, can we get the male model on set? It was really like in the fashion world there's also an upside down pyramid if you look at the the default society. And so it starts already with the upside down pyramid in some way, since the main character is a male model and his girlfriend, they're a branded couple basically.
Yeah, and they're influencer couples.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what starts the idea.
Yeah. And then I wanted to take a look on this beauty as a currency in the fashion world and see how the structures are working there, and then go to a luxury yacht, and then we end up on a deserted island. So it's basically like 3 different of chess boards that I'm like playing around with the characters.
I feel like there's another version of the film that or there could have been another version of the film made by somebody else where it's just the island.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's just the sunken. So again, you and I have talked about this, and we're cool spoiling this.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to spoil this movie actually. But the boat with all the rich people goes down, and a few of them end up on the island in sort of this, I mean, I don't want to say in a Survivor kind of way, because they're not working together, but they're sort of trying to figure their lives out on this island. You could have just started there.
Yeah, sure. I think that what was important for me was with turning points, and I love turning points in a movie when you can, like, as I said, turn upside down on a structure or create a new kind of setup that reflects the thematics of the film in just a different way. And since I did Force Majeure and The Square, the 2 previous films that I've done, I was very speculative. I wanted to take a very attractive environment, like a ski resort, and then I wanted to discuss gender expectations. And in The Square, I took another attractive environment, the art scene. You want to go and click on it. And in this film, I actually wanted to take 3 attractive environments: the fashion world, the luxury yacht, and the deserted island. So I knew already from the beginning that I didn't only want to have one of them. I wanted to have extra.
It's a great way to talk about class, these environments that you put people in, not to say that your film is being didactic or anything like that, but there is some really lovely moments that made me think that I had the film figured out in its message towards class, and other moments where I had no idea what was going on. I'll give some examples here.
Yeah.
So, the captain, who is the captain played by Woody Harrelson, who is the captain of this luxury liner, is a Marxist.
Yeah.
And it starts to spout these wonderful, they don't really make them like this anymore, these wonderful sort of like Marxist quotes and socialist quotes.
Yeah.
Then there's this Russian oligarch who has all these capitalist quotes.
Yeah.
So you start to think like, oh, okay, well, this is a Marxist film, this is a socialist film. But then
Yeah.
I'm also laughing at the hypocrisy of a captain of a
Yeah.
luxury cruise liner. Then there were moments I thought it was going to be about working class people when they finally get power, being kind to everybody. But then there are moments where you find the working class people get power, and then they take over and they become
Yeah.
the higher class people themselves.
Everybody's mean, basically. Like,
Everybody's mean.
But-
So I think, but what I'm curious about for you is, where does this impulse to talk about class come from in you?
I think it comes from my background. I mean, I'm brought up in a left-wing family, really, and my mother was very engaged politically since the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and she still is one of the few that actually consider herself a communist.
Yeah.
And so in my home there was a lot of political discussion between her and my 8-year-old brother that is more a right-wing liberal. And
Your 8-year-old brother?
he's 8 years older than me.
Oh, okay. I was like,
okay.
geez, he's hard right wing.
Yeah,
8 years old.
yeah,
Right?
exactly. Already right wing liberal. Yeah, when he gets older, he'll probably move over to the left side, right? No, but when I was brought up also during the 70s, the whole world was bashing it against each other from a Western world or an Eastern world perspective, like the liberal capitalism in the West and the socialistic ideas that was in the East. And when I started to look into the quotes of Reagan and Thatcher and Marx and so on, there are quite many fun quotes.
Do you remember one? Do you remember?
Yes, of course, I remember many of them. The last capitalist we hang will be the one who sold us the rope.
Yeah, right.
That's Karl Marx.
That's in the film, yeah.
And then we have Reagan said so many fun. Socialism only works in heaven where they don't need it, and in hell where they already have it. And Thatcher said, the problem with socialism. No, the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money.
Right.
So
we don't have these sort of pithy quotes about economic structures anymore.
No, not really. But I think also, I thought almost that this West and Eastern perspective of the world was over. But then, okay, with the Russian invasion and so on, we were brought back to almost a kind of that kind of perspective. And I think that what I was like reacting on when I was thinking about my mother's political standpoint was that I felt that the left wing had such a problem of understanding the qualities of capitalism. I mean, capitalism had made us live longer, child mortality, less of child mortality, and we all of us are basically getting richer. Then we have other problems with capitalism. So there's a way of combining the two ideologies in order to create a great society. And when I come to the U.S. and in North America, and I don't know about Canada, but in the U.S., I mean, like, socialism is a controversial word, and it's hard for me as a European to understand that because there are so many, parts of a society structure that is completely based on the idea about socialism. So I think that it have been almost like when the captain and the oligarch are sitting there and debating. It had been that these two political ideologies have been two football teams that you either cheer for the one of them or the other one, and instead of trying to figure out how to combine the best part of the both systems.
I'll say that in Canada, socialism not a bad word here.
It's
yet,
not right.
Anyway.
No,
not with. I mean, with some people maybe, but not with, I would say,
Yeah.
the majority. And we definitely live in a social democracy here. I want to go back to what you're talking about there. You are making fun of everybody though, in this film. You are making fun of rich Marxists, and you are making fun of rich capitalists, and you're even making fun of poor Marxists and poor capitalists. Like, is that personally gratifying for you?
I think that Marx was also one of the founders of sociology. And what is so interesting with sociology is that we dare to look at human being when we fail, and it's not nostalgic and romantic. It's just it's like a distant approach, almost like we are watching an animal and trying to understand our behavior. So sociology don't portray the poor people as nicer than the rich people, because that is, of course, a silly idea. As soon as you get close to a person, you just see another human being. But we almost have this perspective of the world, I would say, that in order to accept the class society we live in, we say that rich people are egoistic and superficial, and poor people are nice and genuine. And I mean, the problem is no, you can meet nice individuals in whatever class you are approaching. And so for me, I don't consider any of the characters in the film as mean. I always want to try to be able to identify with the actions. And just like in sociology, you can create a setup of a situation when we fail to be good human beings. And those situations interest me much more than when we success. I think looking at successful people in fiction film is kind of, why should I do that? I want to see people when we are dealing with dilemmas, we're dealing with the hard situations of being human being.
It's not a cynical film, though. I mean, I think I was looking for moments of bleakness, but it's not a. I mean, it has moments of bleakness.
Yeah, I mean, I am a very social person. Privately, like I love meeting people. I love these kind of events. I love to discuss my films. I love to discuss ideas. I think that human being is great in collaborating. Mm-hmm. We are super good in doing things together and managing things together. So my films definitely don't reflect the way that I look at the other human beings. I use the films as a experimental lab rather. And okay, what happens if we end up on a deserted island and a woman comes in the top of the pyramid? Would she abuse her power? Like there's a young, good-looking man here. What should she do? And what will the young, good-looking man do with his currency and his beauty? Maybe he can get some more fish if he starts sleeping with the cleaning lady that is now on the top of the pyramid. For me, I'm trying to create this setup in order to provoke thoughts about myths and about the prejudice we have.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the opening scene, the dinner table scene off the top, which is, I should say for people listening to this, not on the cruise ship and not on the island. It feels very reflective of a conflict that we can have in our own lives. Can you set up for people listening to this what happens in this dinner scene between two of the main characters?
Well, it's the two main characters that is a kind of a new couple, and they are going to a restaurant.
They're both models.
Yeah, both of them are models, and they have been on a restaurant. The female character, Yaya, she have said that she will invite her boyfriend for dinner, and when the bill comes on the table, she doesn't pick it up. And the time aspect of handling that is much worse for a man than for a woman. So Carl is like, is she not going to pick up the bill?
He's waiting there for her to pick up the bill, wondering whether he should pick up the bill. She hasn't put her hand towards the bill at all.
Yeah, and then he just leans over to look a little bit, and then she says, "Thank you so much, honey." And then he sees his male ego. Now he's in a dilemma. Either he's like bringing up the topic, talking about the elephant in the room, or he pays the bill. And this situation comes 100% from my own life. Also with my wife, it was also in the beginning when we met, and I wanted to impress her. So I was in Cannes. I said, "Come to Cannes. Stay in my hotel room." And I invited her for the first dinner, the second dinner, the third dinner. And then I started to feel, I don't want us to take these roles. I don't want to be the sugar daddy in this relationship. I like her too much. We have to be equal. So. Then she says, "Tomorrow I will invite you." And I'm like, "Oh God, thank you." She understands what I'm dealing with. But the next day, when the bill comes on the table, she doesn't pick it up. And exactly this scenario plays out. And I think it's interesting. It's one of the most shameful moments as a man, at least for me, when it comes to economy and my role as a man and the expectation of me as a man.
You were feeling shameful that you didn't want to pick up the bill.
I feel shameful because I don't want to feel cheap. That's probably the worst thing I can feel. At the same time, I don't want to feel used. So I think there's this kind of, how to say, I felt cornered. So, but we and then you had this horrible fight that is starting with the bill, and when a fight is going like up and like you're fighting really much, and all of a sudden it's almost you're getting friends, but then the fight is on again, and for me it was like a reflection also of the different kind of culture backgrounds we come from, and. Yeah, so she comes from Germany and kind of patriarchalic society. I come from Scandinavia. I'm raised by a single mom. So there was something in the different way of looking at the couple relationship also that was, how to say, exposed.
It's an interesting way to start the film. It's sort of like a microcosm of the conflict that we're about to see.
Yeah, I mean, when you are at the dinner, I can also understand my wife, because if I'm not paying the bill, then I'm in some ways questioning her value. I'm questioning her value as a sitting there being beautiful, like, because that's the aspect that is such a strong thing for women to deal with, and it comes almost like then in the bill scene that then you are like paying for that and accepting that role, and it's an exchange of currencies. Like even in a couple relationship, there are always these kind of exchange of currencies. So it was just. It's one of these like small moments that I love that says something about the gender roles.
One thing that occurred to me was when you screen this film, which is, we'll say, critical of the ultra rich, at some festivals, the audience will be comprised of the ultra rich.
Yeah. I don't consider myself ultra rich, but I definitely consider myself as the rich part of the world, like the rich percentage of the world. And I think it's kind of easy to say, yeah, the really rich people in this world, they are someone else, but I'm just down here on this level. But if you look at it on a global level, I am actually one of the rich people in this world. So I always try to corner myself when I do my films. I'm interested in criticizing the group that I'm connected to, and yeah.
The reactions from the audiences who are ultra wealthy have been okay, though?
Yeah, but I have always, when I pitched the film, and I pitched it to billionaires that are investors, they just laugh and think, this is great, let's go for it. That's the great thing with capitalism, that as long as you can sell it, they will support any ideology.
I've read about your next project, The Entertainment System is Down, about a long-haul flight where the entertainment system goes down.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. Yeah, it's basically quite soon after takeoff, the crew is announcing to the passengers, unfortunately, there will be no entertainment system.
Yeah.
And I will look at modern human beings that we are so used to be distracted about the content on the screens when we had to deal with a flight that is maybe 15 hours or something with no entertainment. And I have been interested in some sociological studies. I'm always trying to find a sociological study in some way that I can put on the theme of the film. But I heard something about a term that is called air rage, and air rage is when a passenger gets so angry so they have to do an emergency landing
because the passenger is angry.
Yeah, because people tend to be very irritated on flights. There's a lot of small things that can go wrong, and in this study it said that the risk for air rage increases by 4 if you board the plane through business class. So
right, if you go through first class,
yeah,
and to your seat in the back,
in economy,
your chances for air rage are higher. Oh, that's interesting.
So it's basically kind of dangerous where you are boarding through business. It's better if you board business class to the left and economy to the right, because then we don't see the inequality in the society, so to speak. So I think it can be very interesting to use the body of an airplane as a micro society, and I can spoil the film and say that actually it's going to start with that we get to know that this flight crashes, and so we are basically seeing the last 15 hours of these passengers' lives, and I'm going to go into trivialities. Like they are offered a compensation because of the entertainment system is down there, and they're getting a cheese sandwich and a mineral water, and that makes people freak out. They can actually handle that, they don't have it, but when the compensation comes, then they want more, and it's like, but come on, is it only worth this that we have no entertainment? So I'm going to look at these trivial things, and in the light of hopefully that the flight becomes like a metaphor for a life, you know.
But what is it? I mean, if you just take what you told me about that film just then, and the film we've been talking about today, Triangle of Sadness, and a little bit about your family history growing up with a mom who was a communist, but growing up very well with a mom who was a communist, and what is it about inequality that you find so interesting as a filmmaker?
But I think that we humans are super interested in that. I think we get provoked when we see inequality. I think we get provoked when we see someone laying on the street and we don't feel that we have any power to help that person's situation. And I think that's one of the reasons that human being is such a successful species, that we work so well together. So much about the political debate, how we are running a society, or religion is about how we create an equal society. And if I look at my mother, that still, like, with such a fire and engagement is discussing politics and on how to improve society, I can also say that it gives a lot of quality to her life. It gives her a meaning. And I think for me, if I was doing films, in order to only sell tickets or maintain an industry, it would not feel really as interesting and important to me.
So what are you making them to do?
The films, they are changing the world. they are bringing in topics that I think is interesting to talk about, and things that I think is important to reflect on, and so on. That is my goal, of course. So,
well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.